The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. We're going to do things a little differently. This book is about the importance of giving and why it's important in business, because if you give lots of value, then your prospects are going to reciprocate by buying. And the more value you give, the more likable you are, the more trustworthy you are, the more valuable what your products and services are, and thus you'll have more people that come back and want to do business with you, more people that will buy from you and will choose you amongst the competition. Now, giving is actually a lot more complicated than we think it is. Most of us think we give enough. The truth is that your rewards and what you receive is always going to be in direct proportion to what you give. And in earlier stages, we think we've given enough, but we only need to look at the rewards that we get and realize whether or not that's true, based in objective reality. What we think is value might not necessarily be what our market considers value to be. Okay? Earlier stages of entrepreneurship, we think that people need to buy what we have to offer, and we try to force it to them. In later stages, we discover how to learn and understand what value is to another person, and then go and create that value and give a lot of that value away in the beginning for free, either through education. If you can't give product or service away, then you can do it through education. It's one of the best ways of doing it. It's done through social media, done through reports, through educating as to the dynamics and the different elements of your product and how it's beneficial for them. Many different ways of doing it. But the key here is, once we learn that value is what the other person considers to be value, not what we think it is, then we go to work to figure out what value means to them. And then, when we figure that out through testing, through practice, and removing of the ego, and I recommend you watch my video that I did on The Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. I'll put a link in the description. Once we start to remove ourselves and what we want out of it, we start to realize that there's a lot of opportunity to give. And when we realize that there's technology out there, all over the place, YouTube, social media, a lot of different kinds of technology to give value and give in orders of magnitude, multiply that value. And then we go out and do it. What value is to our prospect, then the money starts coming in. Then the business starts rolling in. And what we have to do is we have to make it about the other person. We have to make it about our market, and we have to make it about the people that we serve. The more creative ways that we can give value to them, again, value being what they consider to be valuable, the more that they will reciprocate back. And I want to put a lot of emphasis on technology, okay? Technology, because I found that technology is one of the best ways of giving value. And one of the best ways of value giving is through education, educating our prospects and buyers. And it doesn't matter if you have an online business or an offline business. Most people use the internet today in Western society, and more people are getting connected on the internet every day. And they're going on the internet and they're researching. They're trying to figure out what the best options are, whether it's for restaurants, physical products, online products, it doesn't matter. They're researching and they're looking for education. Okay? They want people to explain to them how it works, what are the effects, positive and negative, what kind of results they're going to get as a result of using whatever product or service. And they're checking various sources. They're looking for credibility. They're looking on the internet to see who's done business with you, and they're making comparisons. And if you understand that that's what's going on, then you can go out and create that value for them, which is what they're looking for, making you more likable and trustable. So we're going to discuss this from many different areas. But here's some points that I thought of when I went through this book in relation to creating businesses, leveraging technology to produce and distribute value to our prospects. Number one, technology is making education even more creative, affordable, and scalable each day. Okay, technology is making education even more creative. Okay, social media is a form of creative education. It is through social media where we can educate our prospects in an entertaining way. Okay, those that know how to do social media really well know how to connect to their audience in a way that's relatable. Not trying to be pushy and take value and ask them to buy, but rather look for creative ways of leveraging social media so that they could build a relationship with the audience by giving them education that is educating them about who they are, the product and service, and the various questions that the prospect might have. And this is done very affordable and scalable. Okay, the scalability being the reach of social media. And you could say email marketing is the same thing, or this YouTube channel offers the same kind of example. And affordable, right? You can create one piece of content and put it out on social media, and it can reach a lot of people. And when there are a lot of people conversing and interacting with that piece of content, asking questions in which you respond back, it becomes even more powerful because the objections are overcome. All the different elements of trust building are incorporated in that piece of content. You're becoming more likable. People are evaluating you based on the responses you give. And that's done relatively affordable because you do it once and it reaches many people, provided you do it right. Number two, educating those that we do business with increases the value of our products and services while making us more likable and trustworthy. Okay, likable and trustworthy. People do business with whom they like and trust. And I recommend you watch my video on Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. Put a link in the description if you want to learn how to make yourself more authentically trustworthy. Okay, not manipulative, authentically trustworthy, and to be more likable. When people like you and they trust you, they will invest their hard-earned money in your products and services because they know you have their best interest in mind. And you demonstrate this through education, okay, through leveraging technology and giving value through education. The more likable and trustworthy you are, the more people open up to the value we give in our creative forms of education. So I mentioned that social media, different platforms, are used as entertaining and education. Okay? A nice combination of edutainment, you could say. Education plus entertainment. To demonstrate your likability, to create that like, and your trustworthiness while giving the value that they want, okay, in creative ways. And when you do that, they open up. Okay, they open up and they are more receptive to the value that you give them. So you can actually give them even more value. Get them to join your mailing list, your newsletter, your forum, your group, subscribe to your channel, and so forth, to give them more value. And you're making it more about them. And number four, the more people open up to our giving, more likely they are to reciprocate back. There's no guarantees, but we're increasing likelihood. Okay? And reciprocity is a very powerful subconscious, unconscious trigger based on Robert Cialdini's influence psychology of persuasion. If you haven't studied that book, I put a link in the description on a video I did on that. People want to reciprocate back when you give them stuff that's valuable to them. And they obviously want the value that the product or service promises. But by giving more of that value and just applying this process that I just created here, you can increase the likelihood that they will buy. And not everyone's going to do it, but the likelihood goes up. Now, another thing I want to bring up is the Peter Diamandis 6 Ds of exponentials, because when we're talking about technology and leveraging technology to give value, then we want to understand what's really going on here. And Peter Diamandis talks about the 6 Ds that a product or service goes through in today's world. And if you want to really build your business to a high level, you want to keep these 6 Ds of exponential growth, exponential business growth. And you'll find some of the fastest growing companies on the planet today who are technology based or are leveraging technology are keeping into consideration these 6 Ds. So it's worthwhile to really reflect upon them. And even if you have an offline business, figure out how you can incorporate elements to be part of this 6 Ds of exponential growth. Okay, and I recommend you study the work from Peter Diamandis. He has a book called Bold, in which he goes into discussion on these 6 Ds. Might do a discussion on that. So first is to take something and make it digitized. Okay, you can take your marketing and make it digitized. You can take elements of your business and make it digitized. Or you could take an external product or service that exists physically, and with creativity, you can make it digitized. Okay, think of Spotify versus music CDs. Back in the days, we would have tons and tons of physical music CDs. But now the value has increased by Spotify by making the music digitized. Digitizing part or whole of a business allows you to multiply the value you give. Remember, in the reach, the affordability, the scalability. Second is deceptive. So once you create a digitized element, either part or whole of the business digitized, the earlier stages are very deceptive, a period during which exponential growth goes mostly unnoticed. And I'm just glossing over this. I recommend you study this stuff. This is a period where you keep working, creating value, and usually will not receive much recognition. But you're building something, and your competitors are not doing this. You're leveraging technology, you're doing things creatively to make things more affordable, but do it in a way where it's higher profit for you based on scalability and reach. And maybe your competitors might charge more for the product or service, but because they're not able to scale and give the value that you can give in your very lean operations or creative ways of delivering that value or producing that value, when it gets to a certain point, they wouldn't be able to compete because you can just give way more. Disruptive, okay, we live in an exponential era. Either disrupt yourself or be disrupted by somebody else. Remember that. Either disrupt yourself or be disrupted by somebody else. So when we're creating value, when we're giving to others, we're essentially looking to see what kind of value exists in the marketplace that serves our prospects, and how can we reach that same prospect cheaper, faster, more efficient, reducing the costs for the prospect, and giving more. And again, this is done through online businesses, digital products, apps, software, etc., but can also, with a lot of creativity, be done with offline services. Think of companies like Uber or cryptocurrency, Airbnb, for example. Right? How did Airbnb become the biggest hotel company in the world without actually owning any hotels? How did Uber become the biggest taxi in the world, taxi company, without owning any taxis? Creative thinking, okay? Disrupting the industries, bringing the costs down. Businesses that run monopolies and charge a high fee, not affordable by most, will start to become marginalized as a result of being disruptive. And again, we're not being disruptive because we just want to create chaos. We're being disruptive because what we're trying to do is increase the value to our prospect and client. Okay? Faster, more affordable, cheaper, easier to do business with, and so forth, and educating them. Okay? Educating them through the options, many different ways of doing this. Demonetize, less expensive because technology makes things cheaper, removing money out of the equation. So eventually a lot of things will become free. Okay? A lot of forms of education nowadays are free. You can learn how to use various pieces of software, do different things, build a business, etc., by watching a bunch of YouTube videos. There's tons of content teaching you step by step on how to do things. It's free. Okay? How do they make money? Well, through ads, through other offers that are more premium and so forth. But the content producers who create this form of value, education value, have figured out how to work with the technology of YouTube to deliver lots of value for free and still make money and still build a business around it by creating a back-end, back-end offerings. Dematerialize devices that would have probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today they come free or as apps on a smartphone. Okay, look at the camera, for example. Okay? We went from having cameras with film to digital cameras to now having high-quality cameras on a smartphone already comes with it, and various apps that allow you to edit the images and so forth, so you don't really need to go to a photo lab for the most part. And democratization. Okay, this is what happens when physical objects are turned into bits and hosted on a digital platform in such high volume that the prices approach zero. And this is the case with a lot of education nowadays. You notice this? This is what's happening, and this is already here. So keeping to consider this, and I spent a lot of time on the context of this for a very important reason. I want you to consider your business and look at your business as not just the whole, but the parts that make up the whole, and recognize what I've covered contextually and figure out how you can incorporate elements, either part or whole, of what was discussed to multiply what you give in terms of value to your marketplace. Okay, that's the calibrator. That's the modus operandi. That being said, let's get started on the 5 laws as discussed in the book. Number 1, the law of value. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And because we have technology nowadays, we can look for creative ways to give more value in the form of educating our prospects and buyers, in the form of reducing some of the steps and processes to reach our prospective clients or provide better customer support, outsourcing, automation, artificial intelligence, and so forth has reduced the costs of how much value we can give to our prospects and clients. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it in your business because every business is different, but I want to stimulate some new ways of thinking. And the new ways of thinking includes giving value but leveraging technology in creative ways. So, I mentioned this earlier. A lot of us think we give enough value. And the truth is that your returns are always in direct proportion to the value you create for others. So thus, if you're not getting enough in return, it's probably because you're not giving enough value. And you might think you're giving enough value, but it's important to recognize what value is to your prospect and client. This takes some reflection, some awareness, some breaking down of ego. I mentioned that earlier. And really doing some research into your market. One of the best ways to do this is to go out and study your pains and frustrations that your market is experiencing it. Now, again, technology provides us that information. You could read the reviews, you could go to the forums, you could go on your competitors' sites, you could study all the different kinds of real social media interactions that people are having with different companies and the value or lack thereof that they provide, and you can find their pain points. You can find the areas that they're not being served. And if you can serve them in those areas, well, then you're on the right track. And if you make it more about doing things that way, where you're looking for what the others, your prospects, are not getting, and creating value to serve them in that area, and if possible, make it free by leveraging technology, give a lot of that away, well, then now they're going to want to start doing business with you because you've become what Jay Abraham calls the most trusted advisor. And I recommend that you watch Jay's content on the strategy of preeminence. I'm going to put a link in the description to a video and study the strategy of preeminence, because the strategy of preeminence is another way of looking at value. All things being equal, people will do business and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Okay, we want to become trustworthy. We want to become likable. And likable really comes down to authenticity, which we'll talk about later, being authentic. And the more we can do this while giving value, what the market sees as value, and we can find that through research, the more we're going to get back in return as far as business goes. Its goal is to provide a high quality product or service than any amount of money could possibly pay for. The goal is to provide a higher quality of product or service than any amount of money could possibly pay for. So think about that for a moment. A lot of people think, how do I get money out of people? What's the fastest way to get money out of people? Now, you could do things that way, and you could deceive and delude, but there's downsides to that. Because if you do it from that perspective, then you don't have something for the long term. And if you understand lifetime customer value, you'll realize that the most money you can make, the most profit is made from the long-term deals that you do with a client. The front end, the first few sales, if you know how to do business well, you could take a hit on it because you know that first few sales is there to build a relationship with them. And then what happens is that you'll make more money in the back end by offering higher end products or services, and also partner with other companies who offer complementary products and services. And because you have now trust with the client and prospect, they'll be more likely to take your suggestions of the other products and services, and you could take a percentage of that. A lot of creative ways to doing it. So if you deceive people and you take advantage of them, you just try to say whatever they want to hear to just take that first bit of money out of them and never do business with them again, you're not really going to do really well in the long term. This is not going to be a long-term thing for you. And people are going to write about it. They're going to share their negative experiences, and eventually it's going to mess you up. So come from a place of always looking to give value, not just with your clients, but your prospects and people in general. Okay, this is a way of life. Okay, you give. Why? Because you love to. It's not a strategy, it's a way of life. If you look at everybody that you deal with and you say, how can I give more value to them? Everyone. Then your brain goes to work, and that becomes your modus operandi. The patterning, wiring in your brain gets rearranged to be the go-giver, be the person that gives more value, and you're more likely to come up with creative ways of giving value to the market that you serve that pays you money, because you're thinking about it all the time. You're thinking about it with your friends, you're thinking about it with your family, you're thinking about it with your relationships, you're thinking about it with the strangers that you come across every day. Okay? How can you give more value? And one of the best ways to do this is to say with everybody that you're interacting with, are you leaving them even just a little bit better off, happier, with more joy, with more excitement than when you came into their life? The first question should be, does it serve? Does it add value to others? If the answer to that is yes, then you can go ahead and ask, does it make money? See, what we're trying to do here, this is a business. We need to make money. We need money to grow our business so we can create the lives that we want for ourselves, so we can reinvest back to create more value for the marketplace and keep growing, etc. So the value that we give to others needs to be reciprocated with money or some form of value so we can build a business around this. And once you start looking for a marketplace to serve, You want to look for a marketplace that is going to reciprocate and pay back. So part of the equation, I mentioned this earlier, is to give, keep giving, and if you feel that you're not receiving enough, then you're probably not giving enough, while also keeping into consideration that it is a marketplace that does reciprocate in forms of money or cryptocurrency or whatever you deal with. The value of compensation. Second law. Your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So the first law determines how valuable you are. In other words, your potential success, how much you could earn, but it's the second law that determines how much you actually do earn. So the key here is to observe and recognize how much, when you ask, say you give a lot of value, and you ask for some money in return, are people buying it? Are people actually buying it? If they're not buying it, then perhaps what you're offering is not valuable enough, or it's really not a marketplace worth serving because they are just not going to pay for it. And there are two amazing things about this. First, it means that you get to determine your level of compensation. It's under your control because you get to choose what marketplace you want to serve. And here's the cool thing. If you're a go-giver and you work on becoming a go-giver and you know how to create value for others, then all you got to do is find that marketplace that is willing to pay, willing to invest, so forth, and then go in there and do your value thing. Do the thing that you do that you have trained yourself to do, which is be the go-giver, which is essentially knowing what value means to the other person and figuring out creative ways, and a lot of times, I mentioned this earlier, leveraging technology to fulfill on those ways. Give the value, and you'll have more of that market share, especially if the competitors in that area aren't thinking that way. Okay, so if you're in a marketplace or market or segment or niche where the competitors don't think that way and you go in there with this way of thinking and you do the work and you create, the likelihood of you taking that market share and a substantial amount of that market share and you being the number one in that marketplace goes up even higher. The likelihood is even higher. If you want more success, find a way to serve more people. It's that simple. And this is why I brought up the technology piece in the beginning. Maybe you might have thought, well, why did I spend so much time on that? The thing is that technology, social media, technology in general, allows us to serve more people. Think about that. Technology allows us to serve more people. And we can figure out ways to incorporate technology in our business to serve more people. Because the more people we serve, the more value we create, the more we get back. It also means that there's no limitations to what you can earn because you can always find more people to serve. Now, this is interesting. Once you start to find that nice harmony of how much value you need to create and how much you get back, you've now figured out a model, a process. And if you've got profits now, you can reinvest that profit into creating another business or serving another niche or scaling what you have to offer. And you can then hire people, you can implement more technology, and you can adjust it up and down to as much as you want. You can keep going and you can build another business and another business and another business. And the distinct advantage that you will have over other people is that you're looking for ways to multiply the value you create. And the value that you create multiplies, or the multiplication you're looking at is the value that you're giving prior to them doing business with you. You're looking to multiply the value prior to them doing business with you. Some people might do it the other way. They might create some value, get some clients, and then multiply the value to those clients. And they won't give a lot of value away to recruit more prospects. And that's not the best way to do it. Best way to do it is to create as much value to bring in more prospects, turn them into clients, and then keep giving them even more value so they will be lifelong clients. And with those profits that you make from that business, that model, reinvest back and start another business serving either those clients or by taking it into another segment of the marketplace or a new marketplace. And you can even partner with somebody who has expertise in that marketplace, but because you have the business model, the business know-how of creating value and being the go-giver, you'll be able to partner with them and you take care of the pieces that are designed to multiply the value while they create the value. So you partner with them and then provide multiples of value to that marketplace, taking a percentage. And thus now you can leverage your understanding and ability of creating value to make even more business growth and profits, and you can repeat the process over and over again. But do you see, as we're discussing this, that the foundation to this is really how much you give? And I said it a handful of times and I'll say it again. How much you give in terms of value based on what your prospects in the marketplace sees as value. Okay? It has to really be about what they see about what value is. Next, the law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Other people's interests first. So now this is interesting. You can serve the marketplace, you can serve the clients, and then what you want to do is you want to also influence. You want to connect and build relationships, strategic relationships, alliances with other industries and other businesses. And those people are going to be most likely like you because like attracts like. If you are a value creator, then you're going to surround yourself with value creators in other industries, and then something interesting happens. Now you get influence. And through that influence, you'll be able to grow your business even further. In any business, you also need to know how to develop a network. When you are the go-giver, you will tend to network with others that are go-givers. But if you're a taker and you're a leech and you are always looking for ways to manipulate the marketplace to get an advantage while deceiving others, whether it be your competitors, your clients, your team members, etc., you're not going to attract the go-givers because they're going to know what you're about and they're not going to want to deal with you. So when you're a go-giver, you're just making it easier on yourself when it comes to networking. Then you'll be able to connect with the right people, like-mindedness, who are also go-givers, who are also creating exponential value in the marketplaces that they serve. And then through that combination, through that mastermind, even more powerful things happen. Now, by a network, I don't necessarily mean your customers, clients. I mean a network of people who know you, like you, and trust you. They might never buy a thing from you, but they've always got you in the backs of their minds. Okay, so sometimes you'll connect with people, very influential people, and they're never going to buy off you. But if you try to force them to buy, or you see them, you don't understand the value of a network, and you don't understand the importance of giving and making it about them, you're missing out on some possible opportunities that could arise. Maybe not right away, but in the distant future. That's why I mentioned earlier, this is a way of being. Okay? You give. Why? Because you love to. It's not a strategy, it's a way of life. Now, this also doesn't mean that you're not reciprocating, you're not receiving. Okay? Law of compensation. And we're going to get into receptivity because someone who's actually really good at giving is actually very good at receiving. We'll talk about that later. So influence. When you're the go-giver and you give a lot of value, you have influence in your marketplace, and you can connect with other influencers who are also go-givers. And then a powerful network forms. and creativity, and you can share your ideas and ways of doing business with them. And likewise, they reciprocate and do it with you because they're go-givers. And ideas and insightful data and cool, real, concrete things that work as far as ad campaigns or whatever you want is accessible to implement in your business activities very easily because you're surrounded by those level of influencers who don't hold back information, who are go-givers also. The law of authenticity. So this is one of the most important elements of this. Authenticity, being real. You'll find that the best of the best at this, the real go-givers, are highly authentic when you meet them. You can sense the authenticity in their presence, in their voice. You can tell that they really care about you. They have your best interests in mind. And they're not trying to look cool or impress you, but instead they're there to serve you. Now, at the same time, they're smart, they're astute. They're not the kind of people that get taken advantage of. So thus, they don't need to hold the front of defensiveness all the time. Okay? I recognize that sometimes you're around people that try to take advantage of you. And when you're open to them, they might try to take advantage of you. When you come from a place of being a go-giver, you start to learn very quick who is worth your time and who is not. You don't find yourself oftentimes around people that will take advantage of you. And if you do find yourself around people that take advantage of you, you know how to gracefully eject from the situation. You don't need to stay there. And you can then serve the people that really want to be served. And by you being authentic, by you breaking down your wall or any kind of facade you put down, you put up your ego, etc., you allow the other person to be authentic also. And when they become authentic, or they tap into their authenticity, they start to share with you what they consider to be valuable. And then you're able to create that value for them. A lot of times our market, the people that we serve, our prospects, our clients, when you're dealing with them one-on-one, or those that are influencers, those individuals will not feel comfortable revealing to you what their pains, their frustrations, their insecurities are, unless you allow them that channel. And the key here is you go first. You're the one that creates that place of authenticity. And it starts with you being authentic, you being real. Okay, now check yourself to see if you're putting up a front. Okay, you can always tell when someone's putting up a front. You can feel it in their energy. You can hear it in their voice. And you can tell they're not interested in you and what you have to say. And granted, a lot of times people think that this is easy. But in the world that we live in today, because things are really fast and we're dealing with a lot of fears and insecurities because of the speed of evolution and so forth, it's easy to put up the front. But when you put up the front, you break the connection with the other person. So part of this is actually being the leader, going first. And the video I recommend you watch is the one I did on 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And it talks about the importance of going first. And authenticity starts with you. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Your way of transacting, your way of doing business is unique to you, and nobody else can do it. The key is not to become someone that you're not. It's to be you and let the real you shine outwards with the skills you develop. That's going to create more relatability. It's going to build the like and trust. And really one of the good quotes that I got from this book is this one. If you want people skills, then practice being a person. Okay? Don't practice being a facade. Don't practice being this front and identify with the front. Because if you do that, you're going to attract people that have the front. You're going to attract people that are also fake. If you're being fake, remember this. If you're being fake, even to a slight degree, you're going to attract people that are going to be fake also. What you put out comes back to you. And that's actually the premise of this book. What you give, you will receive. So if you put out inauthentic ways of being, you will receive inauthentic rewards, which is not what you want. And it's not a reward. You're just going to get the front. So giving comes from an authentic place. We give even if we don't get things in return. But at the same time, we're open. Seems very polarizing and contradictory, but it's very nuanced. You have to get this one. And this comes with practice. And the more you give without expectation of return, while staying open, this is the key, while staying open, because there are people that give, but they're not open to receiving. You can tell. You'll meet a lot of people like this. They're very good at giving, but they don't feel worthy of receiving money or whatever else. They don't feel worthy, even in relationships. They don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy of happiness, and thus they don't get it. So what happens is that they just end up getting drained. If you want to get good at giving, you also have to get good at receiving. That's why in business, it's very important that you study sales. Very important. And study marketing. And fall in love with sales and marketing. I'm not talking about slimy, tactical ways of manipulating people. I'm talking about the deep, real marketing and sales. Once you start to get into it, you'll see that sales and marketing is a very beautiful thing, because what it does is it allows you to figure out what people really want and connect with them and make an offer that is beneficial for them, and they'll pay you for it. That's it. There's no sliminess behind it. You don't need to force people into buying things. You don't need to trick people. You need to find the right marketplace, give lots of value, and people will reciprocate it. But you have to be open to receiving. Now, this is actually one of the important leverage points in this book. And being a giver, we can go out and create lots of value and create and give that value, leveraging technology, being exponential about it, and give it. But we also have to ask for money. Okay, we also have to be open to receiving. So that means when you put when you give lots of value and somebody connects with you, look for ways to get them to do business with you. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving, and recognize this. This is one of the most valuable things that I learned in business. Your rewards might not come from the source that you think it's going to come from, but believe me, it's going to come. Okay, you might find that you're serving a certain marketplace and you're giving, but because you're open to receiving, you might find that all of a sudden you get an insight or a optimization that now switches you to a different market, and you transfer that value giving model, method, and even the value you give maybe sometimes to that other market or that sub niche, and now all of a sudden you're getting paid really well. Now all of a sudden you found a area in the marketplace that might not have been served, but it comes to you. So stay open to receiving and recognize that receiving comes from various sources. This was one of the most valuable lessons that I learned when I had built my IT business, but it was something that I'd studied extensively prior to building my IT business. I recognized that my clients weren't just paying for the IT services. I would give a lot of value and really look at myself as the best value provider IT services. I look at all the inefficiencies of the other IT companies, and I try to serve those inefficiencies. And as a result, I would grow very fast. Now, what's interesting is that because I stayed open to receiving, I found, and I've never really discussed this, other ways to monetize the business. I would generate leads for other businesses and take a percentage of it. I would sell complementary products and services. I would even sell products and services to that clients that were so unrelated to the IT business. And then I recognized through mapping everything out that the lifetime customer value would go up as long as I stay open to receiving from them in various ways. They would refer me to people, and then from the people that I would do business with, who I would sell complementary services from, like I would connect another business to one of my clients, and they would do business and they would give me a percentage of it, the company that I would connect with my client. I would then build a relationship with that other company, and they would open up other business deals that I wouldn't have seen, and I would get sometimes more money from those business deals than I would from my IT clients because I stayed open. But the key to it is if you want to tap into that receptivity, and receptivity is three-dimensional, multi-dimensional, as I just mentioned. I can give you an example, but there's tons of examples that I've experienced and tons of examples I've seen my clients experience and business partners experience that are based on being open, but it really takes faith, okay? Really takes faith. I know that might sound abstract, take faith, but it's a sign of confidence. Okay, one of the things that we aim to build in this journey of entrepreneurship is self-confidence. And self-confidence really is giving. The highest level of I'm talking about real, core, authentic self-confidence. People who have the highest level of self-confidence are the ones that give. They don't take energy, they don't have this kind of taking vibe to them. They have a very giving, and it's expressive in their body language and their communication and the actions that they take. They're always looking for ways to give, and they have a high level of self-confidence because they know they'll always get it back because they're open, they're receptive. Okay, so these are my insights and perspective on the 5 laws. Again, when you combine that with the leverage of technology, and then you reflect upon the 6 Ds of Exponentials by Peter Diamandis, might be a different way of looking at this book, but I think that this book is very powerful and more relevant today than when it was released, and will continue to be relevant. The concept of giving will continue to be relevant and will keep going. So it's important to really jump on the elements of discussion on this and integrate it in your business right away. Don't wait. And you will be ahead of the curve, because if you don't do it, then others are going to discover that this is the way of being, and they're going to be ahead of you. And really, giving is a skill. Giving is a skill. Receiving is a skill. It needs to be practiced. And then when you practice it, it'll open up more doors. We're just scratching the surface here. These concepts, the 5 laws, they can go very, very deep. I mentioned some examples of receptivity, but each one of them have multidimensional depths to them that can only be realized through practice and implementation. So you must apply what you've learned, and then you'll see more doors will open, and the likelihood of success will go up because you come from the position of giving. If you want a copy of this mind map, the link is in the bottom of this video in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.